Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 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 Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtotar Satya Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mayi ki jai, Jamuna Mayi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, and welcome everyone to his Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj. It is Monday, January 22nd, 2024 in New York, and tonight we're starting Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 27th chapter, with verse number 22. So glad you could be with us, Maharaj. Obeisances to you, Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'll start us off here with text number 22. Jnanena drishtatattvena vairagyena baliyasa tapo yuktena yogena tivrenatma samadhina. Translation: this devotional service has to be performed strongly, in perfect knowledge and with transcendental vision. One must be strongly renounced and must engage in austerity and perform mystic yoga in order to be firmly fixed in self-absorption. In Srila Prabhupada's purport, devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be performed blindly due to material emotion or mental concoction. It is specifically mentioned here that one has to perform devotional service in full knowledge by visualizing the absolute truth. We can understand about the absolute truth by evolving transcendental knowledge, and the result of such transcendental knowledge will be manifested by renunciation. That renunciation is not temporary or artificial, but is very strong. It is said that development of Krishna consciousness is exhibited by proportionate material detachment, or vairagya. If one does not separate himself from material enjoyment, it is to be understood that he is not advancing in Krishna consciousness. Renunciation in Krishna consciousness is so strong that it cannot be deviated by any attractive illusion. One has to perform devotional service in full tapasya, austerity. One should fast on the 2 Ekadasi days, which fall on the 11th day of the waxing and waning moon, and on the birthdays of Lord Krishna, Lord Ram, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There are many such fasting days. Yogena means by controlling the senses and mind. Yoga Indriya Samyamaha. Yogena implies that one is seriously absorbed in the self and is able, by development of knowledge, to understand his constitutional position in relationship with the super-self. In this way, one becomes fixed in devotional service, and his faith cannot be shaken by any material allurement. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistang Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Bandehang Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitangs Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangs He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshvari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here Kapila Deva is continuing speaking to his mother about devotional service. And here, Jnanena Drishta Tatvena, with the vision of the absolute truth. It says this devotional service has to be performed strongly, in perfect knowledge, and with transcendental vision. Prabhupada right away seizes upon this perfect knowledge and says that devotional service cannot be performed blindly due to material emotion or mental concoction. So if anybody's on that wavelength, he wants to set them straight right away. It's specifically mentioned full knowledge by visualizing the absolute truth, the drishta tatvena, drishta tattva, seeing the truth with vision of the absolute truth. And along with that vision comes jnana and vairagya, a very frequently appearing compound word. Usually we see them together because they go with each other. Once you have actual knowledge, your vairagya should start manifesting. And as Prabhupada says here, that's the test for seeing how advanced someone is. If one does not separate himself from material enjoyment, it is to be understood that he's not advancing in Krishna consciousness. So then you have to ask, well, why is he not advancing? And then he goes on to say that it has to be performed in full tapasya, austerity. So that the renunciation is a natural renunciation. It's not artificial, it's not incomplete, it's not material, it's not materially motivated, but it comes naturally proportionately to how strongly one engages oneself in devotional service. He gives the example of various fasting days which need to be observed. And he says that yogena means by controlling the senses and mind. And the implication of this word yogena, Prabhupada says that one is seriously absorbed in the self and is able to understand who he is and what his relationship with Krishna is. And that's the way one becomes fixed, not by any other process of karma or jnana, but only by this absorption. And that absorption, we all have some small experience of this. Even materialists have some example of being absorbed. If you're really absorbed in some project that you're doing, you lose track of time. You forget to eat. All your relationships go to hell while you're so absorbed. And how much more this is so for someone who's absorbed in pleasing the senses of Krishna. One loses certainly all track of all desire for sense gratification, and that's what Prabhupada is starting to get at here. These verses, this verse and the verse following, are translated or put together, grouped together by Srila Vishwanath. Hopefully, we may get some chance to read his take on these things. But first, Maharaj, please, if you'd like to speak something, we'd be very happy to hear.
Not much for me to say here. One is that this is Drishta Tatvena. Prabhupada says, visualizing the absolute truth. Editorially speaking, I would think that he means the vision of the absolute truth, not forming a mental image by visualizing as we might visualize a completed statue from a rock or something like that. But but also not dismissing the idea that there is a form there, that there, and we'll find that later in Kapila Dev's instructions. He instructs us to fix our minds on the lotus feet of the Lord, and then gradually moving up the Lord's transcendental form. Aliyasa and Tivrena, strongly. Aliyasa means strongly, Tivrena means, again, firmly fixed or strongly powerful, like the sun's rays, Tibra. And yes, that phrase that you pointed out, that if one does not separate himself from material enjoyment, it's to be understood that he's not advancing in Krishna consciousness. I've noted that for my Vanaprastha book. That's a relevant quote. We should be advancing in Jnana Vairagya. What is that? Yes. By knowledge, there should be, by devotional service, there should be knowledge and therefore detachment. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. I had a question. One of the things Prabhupada says here is, I'm looking for it now. Where is it? He says, we can understand about the absolute truth by evolving transcendental knowledge. Would you be able to help us understand what that means by evolving transcendental knowledge?
The original manuscript, I think, said by evolution of transcendental knowledge. I think it just means developing. Yeah, straightforward. It just means developing gradually.
In other words, the understanding naturally comes by vijnana due to one's practice.
Yeah, from devotional service, Jnana and Vairagya should naturally evolve or simply follow.
Thank you.
I don't think there's anything very arcane hidden in that word evolve. It's just follow, develop.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. Saraswati Mata, please go ahead. You have a hand up.
Pranams to all. So this verse makes it so clear how we can gauge our own progress in Krishna consciousness in terms of how removed we are from material enjoyment. And of course, just the same as a lot of devotees all over the world, I've been quite immersed in this Ayodhya and the Pran Pratishtha of Lord Rama. My father and I, we were just commenting how, although I'm not very interested in the politics around the world, but still the fact that the Prime Minister of India he stated he had fasted for 11 days prior. He was asked to fast for 3 days prior to the Pran Pratishtha, but he fasted 11 days. He slept on the bare floor. And both of my father and I were just saying, a lot of the dignitaries and, Bollywood celebrities and stars from sports, they all came. And so some of them, it was very nice to see that they were able to come together and, consider Lord Ram for whatever duration of time that they were able to, and put their own stardom aside. And the deity was just so beautiful. And then they were showing the people who actually crafted the pillars of the temple. Some of them had worked for 20 years, and these were some of them were quite elderly. And then they were asked, well, doesn't your hand hurt? Because they were trying to, the marble that came from Rajasthan was quite dark, and they were using some chalk or something. Wasn't exactly chalk, but something in their hand to lighten that stone. And they were saying 8 to 5, we've worked for like 20 years, and who cares if our fingers or hands hurt? We're making this, we have to get ready for Lord Ram to come to his house. So it just made me think, these people have so much faith. No matter what stage they are on their path of bhakti, you could just see that they had so much faith and love, and there's just exuberance, and the atmosphere must have been wonderful. Because I said to my father, "Where's the flute? The deity needs the flute." And my father's like, "Have you forgotten? This is Lord Rama, not Lord Krishna. There cannot be a flute." Anyway, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mata. Hare Krishna. Well, Anantashesha mentions the Bhagavad Gita 10:10, where Krishna says, he paraphrases, as we surrender more, Krishna gives us the intelligence to understand him. Yeah. Where Gupta Prabhu says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, how much should we concentrate on devotional How much should we concentrate on devotional service to become renounced? And how much should we focus on being renounced to advance in devotional service? Is it common sense for each individual?
The goal is devotional service, renunciation. We don't want to perform devotional service for the sake of becoming renounced. That's not the point. The point is to become engaged in devotional service. So for that purpose, renunciation is wanted. But I gather that the sense of the question is, how much attention should we give to renunciation? Because, yes, that will be individual, and but it proceeds from devotional service. If we engage in devotional service, then along with tapasya, tivrena, or bhakti tapasya baliyasa, then yes, renunciation should follow. So if renunciation is not following, then we question, how much am I engaged in devotional service? Or am I engaged in devotional service with the right understanding, the right mood, the right commitment? But the purpose is never just for renunciation. It's always for devotional service.
All right. Prabhu says, thank you, Maharaj. And Anantashesha Prabhu says, the Ayodhya event illustrates the devotion of people at different levels. Priyanka Mataji says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, what are the checks to know if we are becoming renounced, as we may think we are becoming renounced, but in actuality still attached?
Two things. One is that we want to see how we're becoming more attached to Krishna. That's the real criterion. Just to become renounced is not in itself valuable. But if we're becoming more and more attached to Krishna, then automatically there will automatically be detachment. Bhakti prasyana bhavo viraktiranyatra. As far as checks, we'll know. Just like Prabhupada said, that you don't have to ask, have I eaten? You'll feel full and you won't want to eat anymore. So if we're becoming detached, we lose our hankering for material things. We lose our lamentation for things we haven't achieved or things we've lost. the material have or don't have becomes just not very important. These are signs of spiritual progress. Janshi Moho Yamahamagiti.
All right. Thank you so much, Maharaj, she says, and we say. Ananta Shesha Prabhu says, I understand Gopal Krishna Maharaj and Jayapataka Maharaj were involved in distributing prasadam in Ayodhya. And do we have any more comments or questions here? Otherwise, I was going to see whether Panchatattva Prabhu could read text number 23. Devi's child asks, what is the relation of emotion in devotion?
Emotion is there, it's not dry. Emotional service is not just dry philosophical speculation. But yeah, so the emotions will be there. Everything should be done with devotion and love, the Prabhupada said, but not sentimentally, that there's no just emotion and no understanding. That seems to be the point that Srila Prabhupada so often makes, is that just emotion becomes sentimental. But when there's emotion in relationship with knowledge, then it's perfect.
Jai. Sucharudev Prabhu says, Pranams Maharaj, how do we differentiate between renunciation as a sign of attachment like the Goswamis and renunciation as a sign of frustration like Pingala?
Well, you can see it will be sort of fairly obvious, but renunciation as a sign of frustration is good. It's not that we say, oh, that's just frustration. Good, you're frustrated in material life. Well, it's about time. So we're not against that, but it shouldn't remain on the platform of frustration. I just remain frustrated with material life. And then after some time, I go back to it and say, well, it was frustrating, but let me try it again. Being frustrated in material life, one has to now seek the alternative. Otherwise, the Mayavadis, they're frustrated in material life, and so they come to the point of declaring everything to be false. Either everything except Brahman, like the Shankarites, or everything including Brahman for the Buddhists, but just frustrated. But we have to go beyond that to the personal relationship with Krishna, love and a personal relationship with Krishna, as Devi's child has posted. That's what we want. We want understanding that, yes, of course I was frustrated. I'm spirit soul and I was trying to enjoy matter. How foolish I was. So one becomes detached, one learns that lesson, then one has to go further. Mad bhaktim labhate parama. Engage in devotional service to Krishna.
Jai, thank you so much. Surabhi Kunj Mataji asks, I've always wondered about this. because some people are naturally more simple and renounced from material things than others, even before they engage in devotional service. So when they start devotional service, how do we know that their detachment is due to their advancement in Krishna consciousness instead of just their natural minimalistic lifestyle?
The attachment may be there in the advanced devotee or just the person who's minimalistic. Either way, that's good. But the devotee, we see that his renunciation is, of course, we don't need to know whether it's due to their advancement, but we'll see their advancement. If they have Krishna consciousness, then it'll be manifest in a desire always to chant the holy names of the Lord, not to waste time, to there's a list of signs of ecstatic devotional service. The keen to live in a holy place like that, not wasting time with Yartakala Tuam. So especially we'll see he's always eager to serve Krishna, Hare Krishna, as distinct from the person who just wants to live like a monk, but not engage in Krishna's service. And Devi's child says, isn't a personal relationship directly personal toward one particular person? Not necessarily. Or not, as we might think, the outward love are sometimes not indicative of very much at all. You know, you see people who come and they're full of emotion and perhaps enthusiasm and maybe tears in the eyes, so on. But Prabhupada one time said, first to dry. That is, if the first person is also the first person to leave on sentiment. Prabhupada said, if today you come on sentiment, tomorrow you'll leave. You may leave on sentiment. So the sort of emotion are not as important as dedication, practical service to Krishna. These are the signs that Prabhupada emphasized. Practical devotional service in relation to the Lord. I was in an airport one time receiving Prabhupada along with Satsuru Maharaj and the whole piece. And everybody, I've mentioned this before, everybody was jumping up and were in tears and so on and so on. And Satsuru Maharaj said, I don't feel anything. But now, like, 50 years later, they're gone and Satsuru Maharaj is still there. So,
Looks like we lost Maharaj temporarily. Hopefully he'll be able to log back on very soon. I believe he's in Jagannath Puri at the moment. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. going to wait till Maharaj gets back on before I ask your question in the chat, Saraswati Mataji.
I don't know why, but this reminds me, Prabhu's, of Prabhupada speaking and then going silent for several minutes. And the devotees were waiting for him. Very different circumstances.
Well, I'm seeing that Maharaj doesn't have his microphone yet connected again, and things are still very active there in the chat window.
I just how
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Yoganananda, you're nearby. What if you, and you seem to have a solid connection, what if you delivered your India phone to Maharaj?
Should I just run it downstairs?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
these are
Of course, I think Maharaj is going to now look as if Yoganananda is speaking, but anyway, it might be a solution temporarily.
Thank you, Panchatattva Prabhu. I didn't know you had such intense and local connections.
I think for now I can just make do with what I have, and but know that it's not very, that it's flimsy. I don't think we have to patch in other. We can just.
Okay.
I have to leave early. While I'm in Puri, the schedule is quite.
I'm also having very low volume.
Oh. I could do something on no volume. But don't wait for me, Carrie.
All right. Saraswati Mata asks, we see that some pure devotees, like the Pandavas, are living a so-called very opulent life, but are absolutely detached from material enjoyment, which may make someone ask how they can genuinely remain aloof from enjoying the opulences and royal-like lifestyle.
Yeah, it's just an Indian phone.
And in conjunction with that question, she says, I ask because for some gurus in our movement, living the opulent life dragged them down. I wasn't sure how much of that Maharaj might have heard, because it looks like.
Geo, we have the same connection.
All right, I'll read that again. We see that some pure devotees, like the Pandavas, are living a so-called very opulent life, but are absolutely detached from material enjoyment, which may make someone ask how they can genuinely remain aloof from enjoying the opulences and royal-like lifestyle? I ask because for some gurus in our movement, living the opulent life dragged them down.
Well, one thing is the duties of one's ashram. For kshatriyas in household life, to live opulently comes with the territory. It's not contrary to their prescribed duty. But sannyasis, especially, supposed to be vairagis, they should live according to the standards of the ashram, accumulating and putting on a wealth profile. So in a king, to have to live royally is not untoward, but for a sannyasi, it's not expected. And therefore we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as an ideal sannyasi, was living so simply. And here in Puri, we're reminded that the Jagadananda Pandit wanted to offer him just a simple bed and some massage oil, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected them both. He said, the next thing you'll want is that I should have a masseur, and as far as a bed, what is this? I'm a sannyasi, I should be sleeping on the ground. So finally he accepted a little thin cushion made of the inside of made of leaves, basically, as a kind of negotiated settlement with Jagadananda. But he was very strict about living a renounced life. He refused to see Pratapa-rudra Maharaj on the same grounds. I'm a sannyasi, I can't be involved with kings and sense enjoyers. But then we see that there are devotees who are in householder life or in opulent life, but their external trappings don't mean much to them. The main thing is their service to Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. And Devi's child says, aren't we advised to pray and do devotional service to Krishna's personal form so that we can have an intimate and emotional attachment towards Krishna? Because in the worship of the formless, we may not get that attachment.
Yes, that's right.
All right, Saraswati Mata says, thanks so much, Maharaj. And since Maharaj may need to leave soon, I was going to ask if Panchatattva Prabhu is able to read verse number 23.
Certainly. I've been considering this whole. I just wanted to make a comment, and I want to drag off the discussion in another direction. But obviously, this Ayodhya temple is topical, and I seem to have a minority opinion for some reason or other. I see that there is a history here that in the 17th century, a rather awful Muslim ruler destroyed a temple that was there in that spot in Ayodhya and established a very big mosque. And then 300 years later, in 1992, an unruly mob destroyed the mosque. And now we have a beautiful Ram Mandir coming up in its place. And I do wonder if this is the way to go about things. I would have been personally just as happy to see a temple of Lord Ramachandra go up nearby without the destruction and veritable hatred expressed towards another religion. But I guess that's just my opinion. There's a place where Prabhupada's discussing with his disciples, and it's somewhere like, and he's saying, when Krishna creates, he simply creates. But when we create, we have to destroy something. He was giving the example of building. You build, you have to cut down so many trees, you have to engage in a destructive process to create. So that's karma. You destroy something to create something. And I'm not necessarily saying that this is a perfect analogy for this situation, but I do wonder if our process of spiritual life must involve the expression of hostility, violence, and destruction towards other religious practices. So I'll leave it at that. Text 23. Prakriti purushasyeha dhayamana dvaharnisham tira bhavitri shanakayar agnir yonir ivaranihi. The influence of material nature has covered the living entity. And thus, it is as if the living entity were always in a blazing fire. But by the process of seriously discharging devotional service, this influence can be removed, just as wooden sticks which cause a fire are themselves consumed by it. Purport. Fire is conserved in wooden sticks, and when circumstances are favorable, the fire is ignited. But the wooden sticks, which are the cause of the fire, are also consumed by the fire if it is properly dealt with. Similarly, the living entity's conditional life of material existence is due to his desire to lord it over material nature and due to his envy of the Supreme Lord. Thus, his main diseases are that he wants to be one with the Supreme Lord, or he wants to become the Lord of material nature. The karmis try to utilize the resources of material nature and thus become its Lord and enjoy sense gratification. And the jnanis, the salvationists, who have become frustrated in enjoying the material resources, want to become one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead or merge into the impersonal effulgence. These two diseases are due to material contamination. Material contamination can be consumed by devotional service because in devotional service, these two diseases, namely the desire to lord it over material nature and the desire to become one with the Supreme Lord, are absent. Therefore, the cause of material existence is at once consumed. By the careful discharge of devotional service in Krishna consciousness. A devotee in full Krishna consciousness appears superficially to be a great karmi, always working. But the inner significance of the devotee's activities is that they're meant for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. This is called bhakti, or devotional service. Arjuna was apparently a fighter, but when by his fighting he satisfied the senses of Lord Krishna, he became a devotee. Since a devotee also engages in philosophical research to understand the Supreme Person as he is, his activities may thus appear to be like those of a mental speculator. But actually, he's trying to understand the spiritual nature and transcendental activities. Thus, although the tendency for philosophical speculation exists, the material effects of fruitive activities and empiric speculation do not. Because this activity is meant for the Supreme Personality of God. Om Jnana Timaranda Shagananjana Sakaya Chakshuru Manitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So where your heart is, that's where your treasure lies. Why we do things is important. For what purpose do we rise in the morning? For what purpose do we cook? For what purpose are all of these activities being performed? If they're performed in the service of the Lord, they become transcendental. Brahmarpanam, Brahmahabir, Brahmagna, Brahmanahutam, Brahmaivatena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. In the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that if activities are engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord, the consummation is absolute. And that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. So these activities in devotional service are beyond karma. They are akarma activities. They're transcendental. And Prabhupada starts off in this purport talk, citing the example given in the verse by saying, fire is conserved in wooden sticks, and when circumstances are favorable, the fire is ignited. But the wooden sticks, which are the cause of the fire, are also consumed by the fire if it is properly dealt with. So, by the grace of Guru and Krishna, we're given instructions how to properly kindle the fire of devotional service so that full consummation takes place. Our material desires are ultimately vanquished, our errant philosophical understandings become removed, our tendencies towards karma and jnana are ended, because all of our activities are given in the right direction, for the right purpose, with the right rules and regulations, just as mentioned before in the previous verse. There is the vairagya, material detachment, is important. The proper devotional austerities and penances are important. All of these things are helpmates in bringing us to the platform of transcendence, of devotion, of pure devotional service. I was thinking about the hands of Vishnujan Swami while reading this. Let's see if I could find the reference. Yes, there's a nice remembrance of Vishnujan Swami by Adidev Prabhu. He says, Vishnujan Swami was a great cook. In the kitchen, the first thing he'd do is take all the cabinet doors off the cabinet so he could see everything. He'd been in there with just his sannyas dhoti on, dripping with perspiration and cooking away. He had these huge hands, all calloused from playing mridanga for so many years. He stalked around the kitchen like a lion. We brought in bunches of bananas, and he'd squish the bananas into this banana and watermelon drink that he used to make. He would use lots of sugar, and we were coming off macrobiotic diets and into health foods. So it was like this crazed man was feeding us, but we loved it. He kept telling us, this is spiritual food. This is offered to Krishna. I heard another story in that connection that one time Vishnujan Maharaj was on one of his 8-hour kirtans with devotees on the streets in procession. Some man was heckling them, saying, get a job, get a job. And Vishnujan Maharaj showed him his calloused hands, and that silenced the man because according to at least certain worker standards, if you have calloused hands, you work a lot. So Vishnujan Maharaj certainly did have calloused hands. So the karmis try to utilize the resources of material nature and thus become its lord and enjoy sense gratification. And the jnanis, the salvationists, who become frustrated in enjoying the material resources, want to become one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's a similarity in both cases. The karmis want to lord it over the material nature, and the jnanis want to become ultimately one with the Lord. There's this desire to be the Lord in both cases. But a devotee's mood is to become a servant. He's not after lordship. He's not after kingship. He's not after enjoying, the material creation. I remember one temple president told me that if the non-devotee, if the karmi had his way, he would devour the entire universe, because the senses are so strong that if one had this power, he would immediately try to devour the entire universe. That's his ambition. So therefore, it's very important to restrain the senses and give them the proper activity and direction of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we become like these big animals, and that ambition becomes vicious, as we're seeing on today's world stage. It takes the form of brutalizing other people, brutalizing men, women, and children, brutalizing entire countries. This is the unfortunate natural outcome of the tendency to try to lord it over material nature. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Panchatattva Prabhu. Well, we've got a bunch of stuff in the chat, but we've reached our time. It is 7:56, and I'm going to see see who might want to lead kirtan. I'll leave it open that way.
I can do
Vajay.
it. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sanyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jayadvaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Premanande, Hare 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 Go. Jai Vishnupada Paramahansa Prabhupada Stotara Sada His Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupada Paramahansa Prabhupada Stotara Sada His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anand Kauti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Naam Vichara Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धननाथ जी की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। मैपुर धाम की जय। नीलाचल क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। गंगा यमुना की जय। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी की जय। वेद में मुक्ति सुभूषण की जय। हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. All glories to assembled Lords. All glories to assembled Lords. All glories to assembled Lords. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Hari Hari Gaur.
Jai Jai.
Maharaj ki Jai.
Jai. Thank you so much, Madhupati Prabhu, and thank you, Tulsi Priya, for posting the visuals from ISKCON Vrindavan Mangal Arti. And thank you everyone so much for being here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami and friends ki jai. Hope to see you all again on Wednesday, if not sooner. Hare Krishna.
Samaveta Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
On behalf of Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Panchatattva Prabhu.
Thank you, Akendra Prabhu.
All right, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.